Hello, my name is Kyungmin Baek. I'm a associate professor in information sociology at Sungsil University in South Korea. I'm very happy to have an opportunity to present my work at this great conference. So actually before moving to Korea, I worked at the Nazarbayev University for 2 years, from 2016 through 2018. So probably some of you guys remember me. I was very happy to be there. So that's why I'm very happy to have this opportunity. So today I'm gonna present my my previous work. Actually, this paper was already published in Sociological Perspective last year. So I think this is one of my current work. So I mean, I really want to help understanding of current Korean situation among you guys. So, and then before starting my presentation, I want to express my thankness to Professor Ho-Yun Ko, who gives the great opportunity to me. So, okay, let me start. The title of my work is Double Edges of Strong Agency: The Contradictory Roles of Human Resources Professionals in the Practice of South Korean Parental Leave. So this paper is about why and how organizations adopt and conform the policies. So this is the why I wrote this paper. Okay, let me start. Many previous studies have investigated how business workplaces comply with the law. Broadly speaking, legal environment. So many previous studies have investigated that. But these studies claim that institutional pressures force business workplaces to comply with the law. So aligned with those studies, many studies have shown that how equal opportunity policies, grievance procedures, designate equal opportunity officers, specialized HR department, and sexual harassment policies have spread in responses to institutional pressures originate from the changes of legal environment. However, only few studies have investigated how aggressive institutional pressures actively enforce a particular practice that organizations adopt in responses to institutional pressures. It means that many studies have shown that organizations have adopted some policies, but only few studies have investigated how aggressively organization adopt or conform to given policies. So this is a little bit different point of view. So in previous studies shows that why and how organization adopt some policies, just adopt or non-adopt. But my studies ask some question like why and how organization conform the policy, how much organization conform the policy. So this is a little bit different point of view. So previous studies expected that decoupling is a kind of jargon of institutional theories. So decoupling is like a gap between formal policy and its implementation. So for example, an organization adopt a policy. They made a procedure, or they build some procedure, official procedure, like for example, organization adopt a parental leave policy. But even though they adopt the policy, they would not implement the policy. So in that sense, there is some gap between implementation and its practice. The decoupling refers to this kind of gap between the official formal policy adoption and its implementation. This is a gap. So decoupling is a special jargon referring to this kind of situation. So decoupling is likely to occur when organization responds to institutional pressures. So previous studies expect such kind of decoupling. These kind of studies suggest that decoupling is most likely when external institutional pressures on organization are not well aligned with their internal logics. In particular, these studies suggest that professional groups, for example, HR management, HR manager, HR experts, can help translate institutional pressures into particular practice using their expertise. So professional groups, according to the literature, professional groups, for example, HR managers, can help translate institutional pressures. They can understand, using their expertise, they can understand the requirement of legal environment. So using their expertise, they can translate legal environment into requirement of legal environment into particular practice. So they can, in that sense, professional groups plays the very important role to explain the presence of decoupling. So therefore, implementation of particular practice likely depend upon how HR experts within organization mobilize internal support and overcome potential resistance. So, okay. So this is my research question. I can raise the following question. How does HR management, HR managers affect the introduction and implementation of a particular practice? The second, if HR management has a different impact on the introduction and implementation of a particular practice, how can you explain it? So I'm gonna address those two research questions. So to address those questions, I'd like to investigate how business workplaces enforce parental provision in responses to Equal Employment Opportunity Act in Korea. So Korean case suggests very important and interesting context to address those research questions. So before moving into the theory and hypothesis, I'm gonna explain the parental leave context in Korea. In Korea, female labor force participation increased up to around 50% in 2012. So probably in this situation, as of now, the female labor force participation increased significantly, more than 50. So increasing female labor force participation ignited some problem in terms of the work and family. So employed women have struggled to balance work and family responsibility in Korea. So the work-family conflict has resulted in decline in fertility rate and lowered female employment rate. So interestingly, the fertility rate in Korea decreased rapidly from 6 in the 1960s to 1.29 in 2012. So as of now, probably the COVID-19 has some impact, but the fertility rate in Korea probably this year is maybe lower than 1.0. So which means the lowest record in the world. So I mean, this is a very serious and significant problem in Korea. So because of that, Korean government has amended Equal Employment Opportunity Act to improve maternity benefit as well as to facilitate female employment. So Korean government has very strong intention to boost fertility rate. So and then as well as to forestall the current economic situation, the collapse of current economic situation. So that's why this context is very important. So let me briefly explain how Korean leave requirement is like. So Korean parental leave is very generous. It is actually 1 year, up to 1 year leave, so minimum 1 month, and then this leave is job protected leave, and then the monthly pay is available, approximately $500 per month. And this leave is available to both working fathers and mothers. To make an argument that this leave, Korean leave, is generous, we need to compare Korean leave to others. Compare with the US requirement, Korean leave is very generous. US parent leave is like a maximum 12 weeks leave and job protected and unpaid leave. This leave is also available to both working father and mothers. So, okay. Comparing two countries, Korean parent leave is way much more generous. US is just like 12 weeks, but Korean parent leave is maximum 1 year. And then Korean leave has paid to policy users. So, but the US leave is not paid. So in this sense, Korean parent leave is very generous. But interestingly, Korean leave has provided very interesting context. So as you can see here, Korean leave has been used for maximum 1 year, the minimum 1 month. So in that sense, the organization can provide maximum 1 year or minimum 1 month. They can make the negotiation within employees to determine the length of the parental leave. So we can ask which factor explain the length of parental leave from minimum to maximum. So if organization provide minimum 1 month leave, they can comply with the law. It's totally legal. It's not illegal. It's not illegal. So if organization provide 1 month, this is legal. And then organization provide 1 year leave, this is also legal. But which factor can explain the gap between 1 month and 1 year? So my paper tried to explain this gap, okay? So this is the data. As you can see here, 12% workplaces has not provided parental leave policy, but 12%, around the 13% organization, or 13% workplaces has provided less than 3 months parental leave. And then 67% workplaces has provided 1 year leave. So there is some variation in terms of the length of the parental leave. So my paper has asked the factor that impact on the impact on the length of the leave. So this is our theory. According to the institutional theory, business workplaces with more developed HR functions are more likely to attend to the legal environment in which they operate. In this sense, organizations with separate HR departments would consistently collect and use information about changes in employment laws, and they are likely to translate legal demand into particular practice. However, we expect that strong gender traditionalism means, so there is the fixed expectation about the gender. So men should something like, the woman should something like. This is kind of the fixed expectation refers to gender traditionalism. So strong gender traditionalism is like to prevail in Korean organization, and the mediation of institutional pressures may not be enough to enforce legal demand. In addition to observing the external environment, HR departments need to organize HR human resources efficiently in order to maximize organizational performance. So based on that, I can suggest the first hypothesis. Organizations with the separate HR department are likely to have parental policy, but they may hesitate to allow employees to be off for a longer period. This is the first hypothesis. Okay. In the institutional perspective, the organization where personnel are involved in various HR activities, such as attending HR conferences or subscribing to specialized HR magazine, might also be very sensitive to the changing legal environment. However, we expect that strong gender traditionalism, I already explained that gender traditionalism is like. So we expect that strong gender traditionalism is like to prevail in Korean organization, and the mediation of the institutional pressures may not be enough to fully enforce legal demand. So based on that, I can suggest second hypothesis. The second hypothesis is like the organization where personnels are involved in various HR activities are likely to have parental policy, but they may fail to allow employees to be off for longer period. So, okay, this is the last hypothesis. We expect that organization where HR management is empowered for organization change will be more attentive to change in law. HR management seeks to create bureaucratic remedies for a problem of anticipate social sanctions, but there are competing professions at work in organization, and those actors might argue that following socially desirable norms is too expensive for the organization. So it means that I can imagine that organization as a kind of political field. So HR managers can compete with other managers. So legal managers or marketing or something like that. So in that sense, I can describe organization as like the field, political field, where many or various experts are competing each other. So in that sense, the business or places where HR plays a very important role as change agent will expand HR policies to follow new emerging social norms and rules, as well as to forestall sanctions for non-compliance. Based on that, I can suggest the last hypothesis. The organizations where HR HR human resource is empowered for organization change are likely to have parental leave policy and allow their employees to be off for longer period. So this is data. I used the Workplace Panel Survey 2013. So this is a very famous data to investigate the Korean workplaces. So one of the most representative organization studies in Korea. And then this panel survey has been conducted since 2005. So total number of cases included analysis is 1348. So public sector and education sectors are excluded from our analysis because public sector and educational sector provide much more generous parental leave policies. So they have different the rule of the game. So we excluded those sectors from our data. Responses rate is 54, and included information as control variable is like workplace characteristics and HR management and industrial relationships. Actually, this data itself has those information, not our control variable. So this section shows the variable and method. My dependent variable is I use the two dependent variables. The first one, whether to implement parental leave policy. The second dependent variable is how long does an establishment or business workplaces allow its employee to be off for parental leave. So minimum number is 1, the maximum number would be 12. So independent variable is the presence of separate HR department. The second, the number of HR activities that an establishment involves. The last one is like the extent to which HR management is empowered. So I used the 3 independent variables. To explain the impact of the independent variable, I controlled several variables that may impact on the length of the parental leave. So organization size, organization age, and the business sector, and headquarters status, foreign ownership, and the level of peer pressures, and the number of other work family policies, the number of communication channels, the presence of union, the percentage of employees in managerial positions, percentage of professionals, the financial performance of the business workplaces. Using those control variables, I try to show how HR managers the variables, my independent variable, has impact on the length of the parental leave policy in Korea. So analytical method is like I use the 2 analytical method. The first one, logistic regression, to show whether to implement parental leave policy. And then the second one is Poisson regression. How long does a business workplaces allow its employee to be off for parental leave. So this is descriptive statistics. This is result. So as you see here, all significance has well aligned with the theory and hypothesis. So as you see here, the presence of HR department is very significant and positive to predict the implementation of parental leave provision. And then the presence of HR department has been negative to explain the length of parental provided. This result conformed to the theory and hypothesis. Look at the second law. The former HR management activities, this variable has been positive but non-significant. Also, for the second, for the length of the parental provided, this variable has been positive but non-significant. Look at the empowerment of HR management. So this variable has been positive and significant to explain whether organization implement parental policy. And then this variable has been strongly significant to explain the length of the parental leave provided. So all statistical result conform to my hypothesis. So this is a graph. This is a marginal graph to show the graphically my data conform to my hypothesis. So as you can see here, the HR department has some positive effect, and the former HR activities has some positive effect on to explain the presence of parental leave policy. The HR management empowerment has been same effect. But interestingly, the presence of HR department has negative impact to explain the length of the parental leave provided. The former HR activities has same impact. And the empowerment of HR management has some positive and significant impact on dependent variable. So this is conclusion. HR management has contradictory impact on the introduction and implementation of particular practice. And then the second one, this study shows that mediating external institutional pressures does not guarantee the implementation of particular practice at the maximum level. This study also indicates a particular practice may be only available to be implemented symbolically if the HR department that drives the organization change should not be empowered for changes. So that's all that I have. So I'm really this is my work. So even though this paper was already published, I'm more than welcome to get any comment for this project. I have an additional project, following project. So if I have comment or questions, I will be very happy to develop. I can those questions and comment may have some good contribution to develop my current project. So thank you for your listening, and thank you for your attention to my presentation. I want to if coronavirus has gone in the near future, I really want to visit Nazarbayev University again. I really miss you guys. Okay, thank you.